Are you tired of the cookie-cutter approach to education that's stuck in the last century? Are you seeking a win-win situation where your family thrives, your kid's education is revolutionary, and you still get to chase your own dreams? Welcome to Unschooled Unleashed. Unlock your child's genius. I'm your host, Matthew Jarecki, an unapologetic rebel dad and promoter of what many consider to be educational anarchy. You know the world isn't going to be won by those that just toe the line. It's the innovators, the visionaries, and the resilient spirits that are going to thrive. Our mission here is to forge those world changers within our very homes with less stress, energy, and time. Unschooled Unleashed starts now. Welcome back to another fantastic episode of Unschooled Unleashed. I'm your host, Matthew Jarecki, and today we're going to talk about where schools fall short. Are they preparing your children for the real world? I would argue no. And I would argue that unschooling has some major advantages, and I'm going to kind of explain and walk through that today. So if that's interesting to you, stay tuned. So with that, let's dive in. Today we're going to talk about how traditional schools fail to prepare children for adulthood and how unschooling better equips them for the skills that they truly need to thrive. I think schools are doing an awful job of preparing kids for adulthood. I think they're trying to replace the parent, but can't. I think that the people in charge of schools are confused because they used to do a better job at teaching them how to thrive in adulthood, and they've since regressed for some odd reason while arguing they're all the more important. And I don't understand it. I think we're focused on a lot of the wrong things, and I don't think they can do a much better job the way they're designed. I think that they're designed to create a workforce that's compliant and subservient to whoever's next up higher than you on the totem pole. And because of that, I think it creates a lot of problems, and it doesn't prepare kids for the future in so many ways. You have to really just tear it down and build it again in order to make this thing actually work to prepare kids for the future, at least as far as I can see it. So let's start off with the real world gap, where schools actually fall short. So schools use the one-size-fits-all approach. It's the exception to the rule, not the standard, of making a personalized approach, meaning they can't adjust the curriculum, move quicker or slower, depending on the child's need. They can't move to what they're interested in. You might be interested in dinosaurs, kid, but too bad, we got to move on to, I don't know, studying leaves, which they might not be interested in at the time. But once they get bored with dinosaurs, they would have probably been interested in the next thing, and you can try and get them interested in leaves. The whole approach is just off to me. And I understand why they have to do it. When you got 15, 20, 25 kids in a room, you got to move on, even if one kid doesn't get it. Even if one kid's already understood this and is bored, you have to cover the topic. Standardized tests, rigid curriculums, they rarely teach anything like independent thinking, practical household skills. It's all about whatever they want to focus on, right? Whatever the flavor of the day is. Even though I might agree with some of the flavor of the day, it's still just the same thing. It's not preparing them for adulthood. STEM doesn't prepare you for adulthood. It lacks life application. Students can ace exams in STEM. They can ace exams at school, but they might struggle with everyday tasks like paying, like budgeting or cooking or critical decision making. If you want your child to grow and truly be an independent thinker and learn to teach themselves and all these, and learn to be an adult and thrive in the real world, schools aren't going to do that for you. Unless it's a unique school running on a completely different model than what we think of as traditional schooling. So that's one of the reasons I unschool. One of the big reasons, because it's just not preparing children. I keep reading all these, posts from media giants about school and how a certain percentage close to half of students can't even read at a certain grade, at the whatever grade level, 8th grade level or whatever it might be. I don't want to quote the statistics because it's literally just in passing me reading this stuff. But like, it's not worth it for me to send my kid to school with all this nonsense. They're going to focus on the wrong stuff, and they're not even doing their job well with what they advertise they're going to actually teach your kids. So I pass. Autonomy and responsibility is the next thing I want to talk about. So freedom to choose. I think this is very important. Unschooling gives children the power to pursue their interests, fostering self-motivation rather than forced compliance. When we talk about forced compliance, we're literally talking about if making kids scared to fail, scared to not do exactly what they're told. They're going to have to move on even if they're interested in something, right? Forced compliance, follow the curriculum, study this. If you don't, we will punish you with a bad grade, and it's going to go on your permanent record and ruin your whole life. That's how they motivate children. It's not a goal in front of them saying, we want to get you to where you want to go, which might be an astronaut. So we want to prepare them with certain things to be an astronaut. We also want to prepare them for adulthood. You can't take this personalized approach. They have no freedom to choose. And to me, that's just potentially robbing them of their future. If you bog them down so much they can't move towards the things that they're actually interested in. I agree, everyone needs a foundation in certain things, but doing that at the expense of killing their interests in something or depriving them of their interests and growing in the area that they might actually spend their career in, I think is not good personally. Also with autonomy and responsibilities, ownership of their decisions. Kids learn to weigh consequences, make choices, take accountability. When you actually allow them to do that, and I don't think schools allow them to do that, but when you're at home and you are the parent and make that decision to allow them to feel the weight of their consequences, they're going to make different decisions and learn throughout their life that there are consequences to your actions, that you have to take accountability, that you have to say, it stops here and the change starts with me. If you aren't reinforcing that continually, the temptation is to become a victim. The temptation is to give in. You need to surround your kids with people who are strong if you want them to take ownership of their decisions. Don't feed them nonsense in their heads about how big of a victim they are. That's dangerous. You're literally building the foundation on sand because you can't improve your life if you believe you're a victim, regardless of all the bad things that are done to anyone. Trust me, there are victims out there, but if you adopt the victim mentality, you will be crushed by that victimhood. And I think that's something where schools really fail. And it's very practical in the real world for my child to be able to thrive as an adult, to take ownership of of their decisions. Moving on. Mastering practical household skills. This is another advantage of doing the unschooling or even just home education, is because you can actually teach them practical things, how to live on their own. So if my child, I mean, we used to send people off into war well before 18, and they would be parents as teenagers, and somehow we survived as a species. I'm not advocating for that. I want to be clear. But what I am saying is teenagers can grow up and act, if they're equipped to learn adult skills and actually run an adult life if they choose. But we keep on putting our children in a position in which they don't have to do it because they don't leave until they're 18 and they start learning when they're kicked out of the house. No, that's awful. You need to teach them the practical household skills now. Cooking and meal planning. You got to learn how to handle the basics of cooking, nutrition. I think it's going to build self-confidence. You're going to set them up with a healthy habit, hopefully. And they're also going to have to know that they're contributing to the household and that they're going to be responsible for that on their own one day. So when they get in that fight and they say, I want to move out, and they know the full weight of what they're taking on. I'm not there yet. And I hope it doesn't come out in a fight. It's just, you see that but I think a lot of those decisions by kids are made out of ignorance, and they don't know how much work it actually is to take care of themselves. And I think if we teach them how much work it actually is to take care of the whole household, you got to do your own laundry, and you got to do cooking, you got to go shopping, you got to earn money, you got to pay the rent, you got to pay the bills, all that stuff, they'd probably think twice before going over and saying, I want to get out. Chores and maintenance, fixing a leaky sink or managing all those like household skills, like taking out the trash, laundry, dishes, all these things that you're bringing them in. Chores and maintenance, especially like fixing up the house, so they know that buying a house is actually a lot more work than just buying a house, than renting a house, rather. These are valuable things for them to understand, even if it's just conceptually understanding that there's more work to be done. And that if I leave the comforts of this house, I'm going to have to be responsible for everything that everyone in this house is responsible for to make my house move forward. I think that's a very valuable skill. And, I keep on focusing on if there is their conception, or their understanding of their responsibility. Also, I want to focus on that they actually know how to do this when they do leave. They've already been taught how to do all this stuff. They already know what's expected. They're going to move out and easily transition, hopefully, into that new role of being ultimately responsible. Even though, truly they should be treated like that in your house at some point. But they need to know that it really does fall completely on them. Because we also want to be, of course, forgiving in our house and look out for each other and fill the gaps at times, be graceful is what I'm saying. And when you're out on your own, you know that there's no one actually looking to see if there's gaps. And that is the full weight of the responsibility on them, that I hope my children know that's coming when they decide to leave. Next is mastering practical household skills. I already talked about that. Moving on. That's what I just covered. Next is building hard and soft skills. So now we're going to focus on some of the basics, right? Reading, writing, math, logic. They all thrive in unschooling when directly applied to real life projects. And this is something that you can do with your kid at your side throughout life. They ask a lot of questions, and you can actually help them understand all those topics and explain it to them in real life, and they see the practical application of whatever you're telling them. For example, if your kid doesn't know or has a resistance to math, and they want to, I like to use this example all the time, they want to get a video game, well, you can start to help them come up with a plan. Right? Teach them how to make a plan, and then how to make a savings goal. And then they're going to need to know math to get there. Like, you're going to have to know math, and like let them feel the weight of not knowing math. They're not going to get their video game, because that's the real world. Because when you kick them out of the house, wherever it ends up, they end up leaving. They're going to need to know that stuff. So let them feel the weight younger, not when they're 18 and they're leaving the house. But schools advertise that reading, writing, math, science, all this stuff is taught in schools. And it's true, it's taught. But are they thriving in it? Truly ask yourself that. Are they thriving in it? Is it catered to any particular student? Or is it are they trying to cater the class towards the curriculum? Because if it's catered towards the curriculum, by definition, they're not catering it towards your student. And therefore, they're going to either be throttled or overwhelmed, most likely at some point. And then they're going to start to despise it. And if you despise the basics, if you despise reading, writing, math, science, logic, all the stuff that I was talking about, the stuff that we need to know moving forward as we move into adulthood, or as people move into adulthood. If you make them despise it, they're going to stop learning. They're going to actively avoid it. And if schools calls that, no, thank you. They're doing a bad job on the basics, if that's the case. And we already know they're doing a bad job on the basics. You can just Google it and see how awful literacy rates are in the United States, and the basics of math. My gosh. It's awful. There's also essential soft skills that I believe schools don't teach very well. For example, communication, teamwork, collaboration. Well, those things all emerge naturally when a child is involved in a group project or has family responsibilities that everyone's working together and it's expected in the household. And schools provide a whole bunch of bad examples on how much you can get away with because they really don't have the autonomy or authority to be able to discipline a kid. They understand why at the same time, but also, what are you going to do? Show every single, like you got 100 kids and you got one who's doing everything they can up to the limit in getting away with something, just acting out their behavior is horrible. And every other kid sees, I can get away with that. And all those ones that are like kind of holding back now jump in. And then you just got chaos running. And that's really what schools kind of do. Yeah, there's things they do to try and tamper that down, but I can't tell you how many times when I was young, people would comment on my behavior and they would say, wow, you're really well behaved for your age. And I would just say, oh, okay, thanks. And I had no idea why they kept saying that. You know, this is when I was being homeschooled, and I understood why as soon as I went into a class, because I was homeschooled during my middle school years, which is sixth. I don't know if sixth is technically middle school, but I was homeschooled sixth, seventh, and eighth grade. And I got into high school and I got a rude awakening on how people are treating other people. That to me, that those soft skills, communication, teamwork, collaboration, were not built. In fact, I had to learn how to survive, and that was not a learning environment. The communication that's taught, you're looking at that student who's acting awfully, and they're learning that they can get away with that this is normal. That's what kids see. And I think it's awful to say that's normal. But their hands are tied. I mean, what are you going to do? Can't kick them out of the school. It's socialized, right? Based on your zip code, where you go. And if you want to do something else, you got to pay. So what are you going to do? I don't know. System's a little junked up. Anyways, unschooling, I think, does do a much better job. And at the very least, it doesn't put kids in the position to have the peer pressure to act like that as much, and maybe even build habits of doing that. Moving on, I think that cultivating these meta skills for future success are very important as well. And things that unschooling do that traditional schooling does not do to prepare them for adulthood, a thriving adulthood, is they don't focus on creativity and independent thought at all. Think about this. You're punished for thinking outside the box. If I take a risk, I'm just going to use an example, and this doesn't apply with everything, but the things that you really want to take a risk on and think innovatively, think creatively, try and expand your ability to do something, try and do something that you think you probably don't have a good chance of completing. A goal just a little out of your reach. That's what makes you grow. But that's discouraged in school. And here's my example. You want to go over and have a school art project. You want to get into Harvard, right? You're an ambitious young student. And you have a 4.0. And you're involved in every little community thing. So you can put that on your portfolio for college. You're involved in all these. You're involved in student politics and all these student organizations. You're also athletic and sports. And now you have a science project that you have to do. You need an A. If you get a B, this will destroy your portfolio. Are you going to take a risk, a truly innovative risk? You'd need a lot of encouragement to do that, because you're risking everything, your whole portfolio. If you get a B on this because it didn't work out the way you wanted it to, man, the volcano doesn't erupt Whoops. I tried to power it doing this whole new innovative thing that didn't work. Innovation requires failure. When you attach these grades to it, in expectations that you have to be successful, it stifles innovation. It stifles creativity. If you don't allow children to play, it stifles creativity. Those are not things schools are very good at. It. Having independent thought, no, it's top-down instruction. It's top-down instruction. What I say as the teacher is correct. What the book says is correct. We're not going to have any independent thought here. In fact, independent thought is mostly crushed. Here's the way you think. It's one of the reasons schools were created. If you look into the history of schools, is to indoctrinate. And you can indoctrinate truth or you can indoctrinate false things. We hope they're indoctrinating our children with truth, things that actually happened, things that you can actually use. You can actually, as opposed to maybe political agendas, whether they're true or not, just the flavor of the day, whatever might be going on. It's just, I don't want to go down that road, but it's important for kids to learn how to think for themselves, independent thought, how to use their brains, be creative, question things, right? This is very good. It's how major breakthroughs are made. And if that's our future, right? People who are going to change the world, and we're all a part of that, whether we like it or not, every generation contributes. We as a standard, wouldn't we want to be independent thinkers as a generation, is known as creative innovators? To me, that's kind of what we do in America. It seems that we would want to have that in our school systems. And when I say school, I mean just, it seems like you would want to have that in a child's education. That's what I mean. Anyways, adaptability and self-teaching, more on cultivating these meta skills for future success. You want adaptability. You want your kids to be able to pivot and learn things when they need to. When the new skill comes up, when the technology changes, it would be helpful if they were able to teach theirself, because in the future, you're not going to have this teacher standing above you telling you, here's what you need to learn. Although you could hire one, right, a school, but oftentimes they even fall short. The practical skills you need, oftentimes you have to go over and seek it yourself. You have to seek someone to learn it from. You have to seek a program that works for you where you can actually learn from it because it speaks your language. I don't know. It speaks to you somehow, like you're actually able to absorb it, keeps your attention. Like all these, like you have to learn about yourself. You have to be able to teach yourself, read a book, find resources, being resourceful. Very important things. And I don't think schools do that well. They're not adaptable at all. Things are very rigid, and life's not like that, especially for what we see in the future workforce, which is the majority. It's predicted by the end of this decade, by the end of the 2020s, the majority of the U.S. workforce will be freelancers or entrepreneurs. So get ready to have a lot of change in your life, because that's what those freelancing and entrepreneurs ask for, is to have to adapt, self-teach, keep up. It's all on them. Moving on. Money and financial literacy. All right, I realize money isn't, like, truly money, the dollar, is not important. But what it represents is. Money buys you time. Money buys you safety. Doesn't guarantee any of these things, but it buys you it. You can buy food with money. You can buy education with money. You can buy living quarters. You can buy a place to live with money. A roof over your head. Stay out of the cold. Stay out of the heat. Money is important. Money can get you to a job to even make more money. So you can use it as a tool. Money's just a tool. But if you don't understand money and all the ways it can benefit you, it can also destroy your life. If you aren't good with money, you may not have a roof over your head. You may not have food. You may not be able to It may destroy your life and your marriage because you're such under mental stress that you start to explode on everyone else. And it was unneeded. If you're just bad with money, if you just get this one thing together, you may keep your life. Because maybe you're barely scraping by in a couple other areas. But gosh, now you got this bill that just came in that you didn't expect because you didn't understand that Christmas happens every year. And boom, your life is now in shambles because you can't pay the rent. That's what happens when you're not good with money. I would argue money is one of those things that you really need to, it's one of the like theories that are just really, really important. You have to understand the way money works, the way it flows, the way it influences your life. Okay? And I'm not saying, again, that money is the most important thing. It's what money can do. It's just a tool. It's a transfer of time and energy. And I think it's very important to be able to get a mastery on that in your life in order to thrive. Earning income early, I think, is important. I want to give my kids the ability to earn an income at a very young age. That's my hope. My goal is by 16. I don't know if it'll happen, but I'd love to have all my kids, by the age of 16 years old, they could go out there and actually provide for a family. Not saying that's where it stops or where they should just like, okay, now I learned how to be a carpenter or I learned how to build technology like coding or whatever it might be, apps. Now I'm just going to stop growing and stop learning. No, this is just act one. It might even just be a misstep, but they are able to bring in money when they leave the house. That's my goal, and have a couple years at being able to get used to it and understand it, and understand how predictable it is. But you need an income. So maybe it's entrepreneurial stuff, right? You're selling crafts online. You're got a lemonade stand. I think that unschooling better prepares children for these things. You can go over and do an internship with someone. You don't need permission from someone. You don't need to get in the program. You don't need to apply. You just find someone who's doing what they want to do, and you get them with them and learn. Ask questions. Help out on the side. They can do it for free, right? But this is an education. This is them learning the ropes. This is how education was done for centuries, millennia, actually, because we know it was being done thousands of years ago, right? You had what is it called? You had apprentices learning a skill. This is how it was done. Budgeting and saving. These are very important things to teach our children. Household finances are incredibly important. They would need to learn how their expenses work. It's going to help them prepare for adult life. If you don't have money saved, 3 to 6 months minimum of an emergency fund for when it rains, meaning when an emergency comes, you will regret it. You will. It's going to come. We don't know what it is, but it's going to come. Be prepared for it. I know it's hard to save that much money, but if you think about it, the flow doesn't stop. Right? The flow of money, if you're making $1,000 a month, and I'm just using a hypothetical example, $1,000 a month, the flow is $1,000 a month still. You need to reduce the amount you spend, start to build up a little bit of a reservoir, and then you can go back to spending that after you got 3 to 6 months, and the flow of $1,000 out the door can keep on coming, and that's fine. Anyways, this isn't a money one, so I'm gonna skip. I could talk a whole podcast about that, but just keep an emergency fund. Just learn how to pay your bills, learn how to budget, learn how to do all this stuff. I think it's crucial. Moving on, social skills. I think mixed age interaction is very important, and school does not provide that. That's not how they're actually designed to have kids of about the same age. Unschoolers, however, can engage with people of all ages, neighbors, mentors, community members, kids their own age too. It doesn't matter. Like, they're interacting with everyone. And I think that this is a better skill to learn when you're doing home education than it is in school and the false constructs, social constructs of school. Leading by initiative without anyone telling them to do what they they're going to do. The teacher's directing every move. Like you're going to become a better leader. And really what I want to focus on this last topic is communication and leadership. These are the social skills that I think are going to be essential to thrive. So learning how to lead, to take initiative without someone telling you what to do, I think is critical. Others will follow. There's going to be about, 8 followers for every 2 leaders, or maybe, who knows, 1 leader for every 10 followers. It doesn't matter. It's a minority, and we need a lot of leaders, and everyone can lead in their own way. So finding your leadership style, I think, is important as well. And I think unschooling prepares our children to be able to do that better than schools. I think schools are sorely lacking in that regard. They, I think, discourage taking risks in so many ways that we're too late on time for me to go into that. It just, made fun of, if you fail in front of everyone, there's that fear. You might get in trouble because you took a risk, the bad grade, the, who knows what it might be. We need strong leaders of tomorrow. We need effective communicators of tomorrow. And I think that schools sorely lack the ability to be able to prepare our children. So some actionable tips and resources for you guys. So encourage your kids to manage tasks. Let them take charge of simple household projects. It could be anything from laundry, meal planning, anything that you do in your daily life that they're going to need to do. Start involving them. Leverage online tools. There's videos, there's educational platforms to help children pick up new skills. You can even do a monthly subscription to some educational platform. Even if it offers curriculum, there's nothing wrong with curriculum. It's just if your kid wants to do it. Incorporate real world math. A lot of kids don't like math. Teach them how valuable math is. Show them how to just interact with math in a regular life, right? If math is involved in one of their goals, make sure you highlight that is, they need to understand that math in order to achieve their goal. It's definitely worth doing to help them get them interested in math. Build a community of connections by finding mentors, apprenticeships, local groups, co-ops, anything that aligns with your child's interests. I know we're involved with that. And then really celebrate curiosity. Don't get annoyed by their questions. Make it fun, make it engaging, learn with them. So in conclusion, by contrasting the shortcomings of traditional schooling with the advantages of unschooling, I hope I'm pointing out how the real world readiness comes from genuine involvement in life's practical, social, creative arenas that you are creating as the parent. So when children own their learning, they emerge more autonomous, responsible, and ultimately they're better prepared for adulthood. And I think that's better done with unschooling than it is in a classroom, at least with traditional schooling, the way we run it today. So with that, I'll end today's episode. So stay curious, stay unschooled, and stay away from the algebra nightmares. I'll catch you in the next episode. So here's where we roll up our sleeves and bring out the big guns. If you support our mission, then please leave a review. On Unschooled Unleashed, we are talking about using a radical approach to education in today's world, and the more 5-star reviews we have, the more people will feel comfortable with the ideas, strategies, and principles we discuss. It gives legitimacy to our message, and the podcast's algorithm prioritizes us so we can reach more people. You may even have your 5-star review read on our podcast. Before I let you go, I have to pause and say this from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. Your presence here is the fuel that ignites this movement. I am incredibly moved that you trust in us enough to click play. You, my friends, are the caped heroes in this story, the guardians of your family's learning journey, and a beacon of hope for your community. Be bold. Do what you think is best for you and your family. Thanks again for tuning in and taking this courageous leap outside of the box for this educational revolution. Welcome to the front line.